Okay, welcome everyone to the Gentle Art Podcast with Gene Dunn. We're continuing our Dojo Series. Today we have the privilege of speaking to Mr. John Cokinos, both Tom and my first mentor and a kind of pillar of strength and of principle in the martial arts. And we want to welcome you, sir. Thank you for coming on the show.
Great. Thank you so much.
And of course, all the listeners, you know who Thomas Clifford is. He's the one, the only. So, sir, thank you for coming on the podcast. And Tom and I were discussing. We discuss on the podcast with some measure of frequency your impact and your leadership, your influence on us. And I just want to start off by saying thank you for the years of mentorship that you've given the both of us. We're so grateful, and we've tracked our success right to that. So thank you. Tom, any thoughts there?
I agree. I express my gratitude as well, and there's just no doubt about it that our lives took a very sharp turn for the better when we availed ourselves to your influence, and we both deeply appreciate it.
That reminds me of the first time that you drove me down to Maryland, Tom, and you were like, you got to go meet Mr. Cokinos, and I was like, okay, and I walked into his office, and he sat me down and sat right across from me, and I immediately started to sweat. And what was the famous line? Are you implying what? And after that, my life definitely changed. So welcome, sir.
Thank you. I want to talk about the time that you lent Tom the car and you kept getting tickets in the mail, and they showed a photograph of the back of his head, and you kept saying, Tom, this is you, buddy. This is your ticket. I mean, there's a lot of stories, hotel stories, and you guys go back. And the beautiful thing is that how lovable, well, you show it in different ways, how lovable you both are, how much love you have for what you care in, what you're passionate about, what you believe in. Oh my gosh, you guys are like, forget ground fighting for just a moment. Your fear, I can't forget that. That's the foundation. But the veracity and the velocity that you have when you get behind someone or something, you guys are unstoppable. And what a great example. It's just incredible. You lift up so many people's lives. You inspire people to be better than they are. And Tom has always said, I want to hold people to a high standard. If that's not the martial arts, like what is the martial arts? I mean, next level thinking, next level of requiring of ourselves. Like Tom was saying, well, holistically, how do you mesh the personal life and the professional life? And I say holistically, you guys are caring about people. You are seeing them in a certain light. You're seeing somebody's potential. And you can't do that without humbling, requiring more of yourself. You always are striving. Sometimes you're beating yourselves up. You're trying to love yourself in the right way. You're trying to expect more for yourselves. You're trying to grow people. You know that you can't grow other people unless you're really trying to grow yourself, and you cry about that, you lose sleep about it, you get inspired about it. I think you all have all the ingredients. Yeah, I know you didn't ask me, but there it is.
How do you do it? How is it that when we think of you, we don't think of the man with 1,000 faces. You're extraordinarily consistent in who you present yourself to be. Like, what is it that governs your thought, both personally and professionally? How do you do it? How do you
Yeah.
not fall victim to the temptation of being someone who you are not?
Yeah. Tom, you know, with abject humility, the greatest question we could ask ourselves is like, what is that really inspires us? I mean, just getting to the core, like core training, what is it that really, really inspires? And if we know whatever it is, it could be a gain, it could be the succession of our family, it could be setting people up in our business model for future progress. It could be our own personal discipline. It could be inspiring our children, so it's an indescribable commitment. But the question is, if we know where that comes from, then we can tap into it and we can stay consistent. And so I would throw at you, Tom, why do you require so much of yourself? Now, I answered it partially, and if you don't mind, I just thought I would throw that question at you. What is it? Why do you require a lot from yourself? What would you say?
Well, I try to honor the idea that I have a moral obligation to be my best, to be my best. I have a moral obligation to not overlook or underlook or ignore all of the things I've been given. And I also need to remind myself constantly that I'm supposed to take what I've been given and make more of it, multiply it, increase it, expand it. And I would say this, I would say that my fascination with the way that you live your life, I boil it down to, I learned from my dad how to love the unlovable, how to love that and even those who are often unlovable. But he was always able to love the unlovable. And then my first martial arts instructor taught me how to love things. He taught me how to love something. And the something he taught me how to love was the martial arts. And that it's important to learn how to love something, not just someone. But what you've always exemplified is this ability to love that which is unknown and unseen. Like you have this ability to deeply concern yourself with things that are far beyond your immediate sphere of the obvious influence. So, for example, I don't think you're as concerned with Gene and I, the martial arts school owner, as you are with the students who come to see Gene and I, the martial arts school owners. And I don't think you're as concerned with those people either, because I think you have confidence they're in good hands. I believe that your concern is largely with the people who aren't participating directly, but are benefiting from those who are. That you have a lot of confidence in what the martial arts does for the world beyond the doors of the dojo. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's something that forever inspires me in my brightest and darkest moments. Like, why would you even bother to, trouble yourself?
Sir, I got a question. I heard something interesting there. May I ride in a little bit?
Of course.
Go tail. You said disciplines, and I'm interested to know, what are a few daily disciplines that you engage in that are having like a magnifying effect on not only on your life, but those of the people that you come in contact with?
So, Gene, I've been practicing something very intentional. Call it metaphysics, call it meditation, call it prayer, call it whatever you want to call it. And so I've been saying, okay, this is my perceived issue. This one is giving me some mental turmoil. And I'll find it might be at midnight. I'll go into intentionally, I'll go into a separate room, I'll close the door, and I'll sit there and I'll think about that one issue that I want clarity on, that I want direction on. And it's kind of like driving a stick shift. Which pedal do you hit coming to the stoplight that's yellow, you know? The first one you hit is you throw in the clutch, because if you throw in the clutch, then you can either accelerate or brake and you won't stall out. So when I'm intentionally thinking about something, the discipline is I want to sit and say, okay, I'm pausing, I'm yielding. What's the best motive? How do I get clarity? What decision do I need to make? What fear do I need to overcome to have this get clarity for me? What is my highest sense of what right is? What is it that I need to overcome? What is it that I need to understand? And I've been having more progress with soon after having the thing resolved. Now, I can't go to a physicist or somebody who needs everything proven to be able to say this, but you've been teaching kata for more years than we know. I've watched 5 classes in a row when you were teaching kata, Shotokan. And I was more excited with the 5th class. I kept getting more and more. It was so intense. It was so about attracting mentally good things in your world, good people, good circumstances. You were relating the kata to the life experience. And I think it's very synonymous. What are we doing mentally with our sense of indescribable commitment, fortitude, conviction, overcoming obstacles, looking for the good in every situation? I owe you $1. Problem solving skills, because I don't want to say the word problem. Mr. Ned used to say challenges. What is our opportunity? And you know, life wants to sometimes grab us by the collar and scare us. This aggressive mental suggestion wants to grab us, and we're confronted with all these human circumstances. But I'm saying in the mental state of the kata lies all the answers. Mm-hmm. And however bleak it looks out there, I'm saying there's an application to our mental acuity, our focus, our faith, call it whatever you want to, where all the answers are there. All the circumstances can be adjusted and the right ideas will show up and the right people. All I know is if we're just trying to provide for our highest sense of good, then we're going to be led down a path. Sometimes it's not, sometimes it's painful and challenging and arduous, but the darker the dark, the lighter the light. And I think within that struggle, there's unspeakable joy. And Gene and Tom, you all are seeing that in the people that you're impacting. You're seeing people's lives be adjusted for the better. You're seeing people on a better track. You are cueing and prompting people in such a way that they're responding to you. They're attracted to the light and the energy and the conviction and the knowing that's you're sharing with everybody, and people are seeing that and their lives are being impacted. And that's what Tom was alluding to, that the students are the ripple effect of everything else. So why do we do what we do? And I would ask Gene, well, what do you feel? And I you know, if you want to answer it, you know, what do you feel your role is?
I'll say this, you know, there's many, I think, different roles that we elevate into in this experience as a martial arts teacher, as a man, as a you know, a member of the global community. I mean, there's so many different ways in which it looks to unfold. But one of the things that I think I try to do, and it's embedded in what you were saying, is I try to counterbalance this the thought that it's not, that it doesn't matter. You said conviction, and some people, I think, feel as though they've lost their conviction, their will, their drive. Like the world, the way it looks kind of right now, I've noticed that it'll try to kind of nab us in a certain way and make it seem as though we don't matter, that nothing we can do matters. And so that one of the things I'm actively working on is countering that notion, that sort of negative mental suggestion that we don't. So to reconnect to conviction. And in Japanese martial arts, it's called like fighting spirit, or like kime, the internal drive to live. And I would just put another word to it, is an internal drive to live free. And I think that in the many roles that I think I may seem to have, sort of, that's at the cornerstone of it all. Or, yeah, you know, part of it, a deep part of it, if you will.
Well, then I would say we have to reduce that larger issue down to small steps and just start out by saying, what is it that we're grateful for? Because sometimes we don't even want to ask ourselves what we're grateful for. Sometimes we don't even feel like being grateful, but maybe it's the exact time to start expressing more gratitude, because gratitude allows us to avail ourselves of more good. So maybe the discipline in the kata is to say, okay, what am I grateful for? What is it? Let me start with the smallest of things, and just look around and say, did I have shelter yesterday? Did I have a meal yesterday? I know that we're starting at one level, but I think you have to start someplace. And whatever is joyous and grateful that I can express to other people, like Gene, I've seen people walk into a conference room and you were the first to jump up and offer them a chair. And I'll bet you that when you're going through the cashier of the supermarket, you, my friend, are going to leave that cashier in a better place than where you found them. You're going to know their name. You might say something lovely to them. You might thank them. You know, thank you for being here. I mean, that's the starting point. That's the numeration table of digging ourselves out. We have to dig ourselves out. And if, you know, we're not here to take up the easy. And I'm not saying, oh, this is such a great experience. Oh, this worldly situation is so wonderful. But I'm just saying that your reality might be somebody else's unreality, and their unreality might be your reality. So you can choose what your reality is. And if your choice is to say, okay, I'm expressing some gratitude, and there are people out there, if I'm looking for answers, the answers are already out there. There's no lack of answers. There's no lack of progress. There's no lack of direction. I might feel overwhelmed with challenges, and I got a choice. I can anesthetize myself and be inebriated and numb myself, or for permanence, I can say, I want to express gratitude. I know that there's small steps of progress. I may not know the top of the staircase. It's a little misty, but I certainly know the first step I need to take, because that one step will give me clarity to the next step. So I would like to think that there are answers there. There is progress there. There is growth there. There is us digging deep and searching. What's stirring in your head when I say it?
I got a question. That's what's stirring in my head. You know, how does this relate to the martial arts, with two caveats, how does it relate to the martial arts school owner / teacher and the student? I mean, it seems awful heady, right? It seems a little bit separate, if you will. So how does that relate to me if I have a jiu-jitsu school that's, you know, maybe not doing so great now, or maybe is doing well and I want to do better? And how does it relate if I'm a new white belt coming into a Taekwondo school? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I think the question was, how does it relate to the owner that's looking at, you know, rent issues or shutdown issues or financial issues? Is that what you were talking about?
It is, and I wanted to give a little bit of a doorway to how does it apply to a student. But, you know, I think that there is a number of people that are experiencing a number of different things right now. I mean, Tom and I have talked about some school owners across the country are doing quite well, and God bless them. I'm really happy to hear that. And then some others, maybe not so much.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to, what I understand in what we're talking about is that these are universal principles. And if they're universal and you're listening from the martial arts perspective and you're going, wait, how does this apply to me? I want to answer that question for someone, because you answered it for me. You gave me a lot of insight when I came down to Maryland and sat in your office. So what are your thoughts there?
When you say, how does it apply to the owner of martial arts, that some are doing quite well and some are not doing so well? I would say that all of us have got to go through the problem-solving exercise. And we start out by just asking ourselves certain questions, because it's more effective to answer the right questions than to always be asking ourselves the wrong questions. So the right questions are, what is it that's really important to me? What is it that I'm going to do in the future? So let's say I close the school. What is it that I actually love to do? Do we love what we do? And if we love what we do, then we got to figure out how to make that work. If that's our passion, and doors are shutting all the time, and that's a part of the process. And I'm just saying that we have a choice to say, okay, what's my priority? What's my motive? What do I have to give to other people? And if I have to start small, if that's what I love to do, and I'm going to go down to the wharf and I'm going to go down and teach a few students to get myself back on the feet. I did it before and I'll do it again. And if I decide that I got to go in another direction, well, I've got to see what doors are going to open up for me. Can't sit back and wait. I've got to create. What is it that I want to do? What's going to bring out the best in myself and others? I mean, that's the student creed. I intend to develop myself and others in a positive way. So everybody's got to figure out their own answers. And I'm just saying that whatever the human conditions are, there's always a few steps of progress. And in thought, there are always answers there. Maybe I've got to pick up the darn phone. Maybe I've got to reach out to a few people. Maybe I've got to go on a mental pilgrimage. Maybe I've got to relearn some of my craft. Maybe I've got to get more innovative. Maybe I have to love myself more and stop beating myself up and work my way through it. Work my way through it. One step at a time, 1 inch at a time. I'm in the red zone. And moving the football in the Super Bowl, that last foot is really difficult to do. Everybody is against you. And everything is coming to a center. Now I'm saying that Tom and Gene have been martial artists, and the other martial artists, you've been practicing all your life. You're in the red zone. Now's the time to wake up and get your hips in gear. That's what my dad used to say. I don't know what it means. Get your hips in gear. Lean forward. Get busy. Express gratitude. Go out with joy. And if you're not sure with where to start with the smallest steps of progress. You might end up going in a whole new direction. But you know what, Gene? I think wherever you are, I want to just share this little story. There's this little show about the Messiah that I shared with you about. And it's really a story. This guy is a modern day, let's say, prophet, and it's got similarities to the past. And the CIA is an atheist. They're a non-believer, and they think this guy is filled with magic and miracles. And the community followers are saying, oh, I'm experiencing healing within my area. What I learned from that is that wherever you are, whether you're a believer or a non-believer, is exactly your truth. And whatever you decide about tomorrow is your truth too. And so what I'm saying is that I want to believe that martial arts down the road is going to reach new levels of success. I want to believe that people will come back into the community of martial arts and realize their potential and keep their promises. I want to believe that there's pent up energy and there'll be more people flocking to great martial arts. Now that's my belief. I can't tell you exactly when, but that's my choice. And it's got to start someplace. So you got to decide, are you an unbeliever or are you a believer? In whatever direction you want to go. It starts with a corner of freedom in thought to make that decision right now. And yes, it feels uncomfortable. And yes, I might have trouble sleeping. And yes, it's not clear to me. I understand that. But that's why we did the kata.
I love that scene where he's brought the flock to the steps of of Congress, or it was like even in the program, it was a little bit prophetic, and he's standing there and he's about to kind of do his miracle. And he goes, however you look at this experience is how it's going to be for you. And it was such a beautiful moment in the show. And I think it's really poignant, it doesn't really matter where you start from, right? It's just that, like, on whatever side of this coin you're on, it's that you got to start there and move in a positive direction, however you choose that to be, right? It's really.
I think that's it. Where is Tom on all this? Where's our buddy?
So Gene, you said earlier that, the world is going to nab us.
It can.
Yeah. And, what Mr. Cokinos has taught us both is that, we notice, we appreciate, and we beware. Not in an alarming way, but we have to beware. We notice, we appreciate, we beware.
I like be aware, but yeah.
Yeah. And that's where you say it doesn't matter where it starts, because we need to meet others where they are.
Yeah.
We have to meet them where they are. And then we notice, we appreciate, and we believe. And like he just said, it's what we choose to believe. You believe or you don't believe, but either way, not believing is a belief. Mm-hmm. You're going to believe something, and you're going to notice, appreciate, and believe. And then we notice, appreciate, and behold, and that's manifestation. Mm-hmm. So we do the nabbing. There's an effort for the external to nab our awareness. But if we can notice, appreciate, and beware or be aware, notice, appreciate, and believe, we notice, appreciate, and behold. And that's where we manifest the result that we were looking for in the first place. So,
hey, Tom, there were some times in your life that you felt your back was against the wall.
Sure.
And as a martial artist, maybe you felt on edge. So can you remind us about maybe what was happening, or maybe that's too personal, or where you were and what you needed to do? Because whatever you were thinking back then to get yourself where you are now is what we have to do again. What would you say?
Yeah, so I would say this is that I have experienced some difficulty and hardship, and overextended myself and put myself in positions of risk where I was seeking reward, and things became precarious, to say the very least. And in one example is I didn't take an accurate account or accounting of my assets, of my opportunities, of my arsenal, if you will. Said more constructively, of my resources and my tools and the things that, not just the things that were available, but most importantly, the people who are available. And it would be disingenuous for me to say that I've dug myself out of every ditch. It would be accurate to say I've dug myself into a few, but I haven't dug my way out all by my very lonesome. There's almost always been someone there to throw me a rope. And, look, when you're thrown a rope, you're going to be compelled in your conscience to do one thing with it or the other. And if you're in line with principle and you have responsibilities and aspirations and dreams, and things are principally correct, you're going to use that rope to climb your way out. You're not going to forget the person who extended it to you. But, you know, there's another way to use that rope. But it's not the alternative if you are correct in principle, if your intentions are correct. And I mean correct. I don't mean,
How
you
do
know,
we know that, Tom? Like,
hmm,
how do we know what correct principle is?
we obey our conscience, and sometimes our conscience, because of the things we've done to it, is impaired. You know, it's possible to diminish the consciousness of our conscience.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what you need to do, or what I found was necessary to do, was the hard work that Mr. Cokinos talked about earlier. Is, you know, when you wake up in the middle of the night, it's easier to just go back to bed and hope that the dream catcher does it for you, you know. But to get out of bed and go into the atrium and sit there with maybe a pad and a pencil, or with nothing at all. You know, my first teacher, he used to sit Zen for an hour before we started training, and just sat in lotus or seiza, usually in lotus, and for an hour while we were in the background horsing around, making noise, you know, like under the pretense of hard training. But I used to think, like, what he's doing is so easy. He's just sitting there. And then, you know, you give it a try. And when you have to wrestle with the purity of your thought, and the quality of your thought, and the correctness of your thought, you realize that it's the hardest work there is. Like, it's not all done in overalls and with a wrench. A lot of the, you know, the most intimidating work is done in the confines of our minds. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but I do know that those dilemmas need to be given the appropriate amount of thought.
You know, I'm asking myself, like, you know, I have a conscience, and a lot of it's overridden, or was in the past, by survival. And like, how do we get up and out of survival in order to wrestle with these bigger problems?
I have a lot of confidence in divine conscience before divine consciousness, because my consciousness is subject to the fault of the immediate decadence of my thinking, the pain and pleasure drive of the weakness of my thinking. And I personally have tremendous confidence in my conscience, not my consciousness, but my conscience. And if I
Hey, Tom,
obey,
there was a day when we're all at a certain level at certain times over time, and there was a day when somebody could have gotten you mad. It was more easy for you to kind of roll up the sleeves. So we're all graduating to a different thought model. What did it take for you to kind of get out of that type of reactionary posture and say, wait a minute, there's another path here. I have different priorities.
In the external, it would be people's example, you know, yourself obviously included, and a lot of people's example. But in the internal, it would be the honoring my conscience, honoring what at the core of my being I know to be correct and true, and in alignment with principle beyond the, you know, the primitive desire to gain pleasure and avoid pain. But, you know, things beyond that I am partially incapable of putting into words, and I am partially careful not to, because it's important for people to experience it rather than to be told what's going to be there when they get there. But if you dig deep and you reach into your conscience, you know what is true will be there.
Thoughts, sir?
Oh, my thoughts?
Good to have a guide, by the way. You know, good to have a guide.
I've heard it said it's really difficult to do by yourself. That's what I've heard. It's not impossible, but really difficult.
You know, one of the caveats in my explanation is that I have been surrounded by guides, and I've been surrounded by guides who never pretended to be gods. And that's, I think, one reason people have an aversion to a guide is when their guide pretends to be a god. Not that they're incapable of doing the things that God has made us capable of, but when they just put themselves on a different level, a different pedestal, I think it causes us to put on the brakes. But I've been very fortunate enough to have you're on the top of that list of you gently guided things along. You didn't there was nothing demanding, nothing commanding, nothing required, nothing there was no pretense. So
let me ask the question again. What are your thoughts?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Or are you asking Tom?
Yeah. What are you?
Can you elaborate a little bit more on my thought? Because my thoughts are going in a lot of different directions, but
so
frame it from.
So where do you see it? Like, do we obey our conscience? Is it consciousness? You know, what becomes the source of our knowing of what is in alignment with correct principle? How do we know true north? Where's the compass?
So I would just start to ask, what is my true identity? As I asked Gene, what is my role? If my role is to inspire other people, and that's a gift that I have, then I need to follow up on that role. We basically understand that 2 + 2 = 4. Some parts of our life, we think that 2 + 2 = 5. And that means that we're trying to find an identity of ourselves that's not true north. We're not having the self-awareness to be able to say, who is it that I need to be? What is it that I need to represent? What is it that I need to stand for? Who are the people around me that, are taking shortcuts and hustling people and looking for the quick buck? Because the answer really is that there are great people out there, and what do they have in common? In the martial art world, they're still practicing. They still love martial arts. These are the people that we all would admire. They certainly appreciate their surroundings, and they say thank you a lot, and they understand a bigger picture about what they need to do for people and because of people. And they continue to understand what their guiding purpose is. And I think if we're really looking to see what our guiding purpose is, then we're going to start emulating people around us and that are on the right track. And I mean, I don't want to take a couple hours and watch a terror movie, you know, that's designed to shake me up. I think life can shake us up enough. So how are we going to spend our time that will allow us to have next level thinking? What habits are we going to have that will allow us to be a little healthier physically, mentally, and spiritually? What people out there do I need to reach out to that need a little support and a little encouragement? Who do I need to write a letter to or a little note to? So what I'm saying is that's the starting point or the numeration table to progress. I've got to start someplace with progress. Now, where does that take us? There might be great opportunity. There might be a new business venture. There might be a new investment. There might be a real estate opportunity. There might be an example for growth. And I can't really outline it. All I got to know is that I'm going to take one step at a time. And you used to say, I'm going to peel the onion peel, because the stuff that didn't work for me, I have to have a sense of self-awareness and reflection, and to be able to say, look, the way that I was thinking, the way that I was treating people, the way that I was seeing the world, I need to reform. And I need to start studying things and reading things and enjoying my time differently. Just reshuffle my whole day so I can make progress. Gene, I'm coming back to you.
Sir.
What you thinking about?
I'm thinking about how some of this stuff is timeless, and how, like, we get away from them. You know, I remember when I first started coming to Tom's staff meetings in Orangeburg in 1997. I was at 100 students, or I had 75 students. And I realized that what got me to 75 students was not going to be the thing to get me where, you know, I could see at that point, which was 125 students. And I had to make a mental shift. I had to, like, go, look, what I've been doing has gotten me this far, but it's getting me no further. I'm like that bee that keeps hitting the window. I don't see it, but it stops me. And, you know, since then, and I'm not using this as an opportunity to impress anyone. It's more to impress upon others what's possible. In the time since, I've experienced over 2,000 students in the organization. And
Correct. Students.
Sorry?
Direct.
Yeah, oh yeah, never mind the people that we've helped and the people that we've been in, you know, we've taught the principle to. Like, that's, I mean, maybe in the hundreds of thousands of students. And I'm, again, this is not me trying to boast. It's me humbly coming to the altar and saying, you know, thank you. Like, I had to have the wherewithal to go, wait, I've gone as far as I can go, and no matter what I seem to do in this thought model, I can't go any further. Darn it, I've got to make some changes. And, you know, you said read, sir, and you know, I'm amazed at how many people that are professionals don't read, like, or, you know, the discipline of sitting down and asking yourself some questions, some really important questions, or the discipline of going for a walk, or the discipline of doing you know, some yoga, or, you know, my I'll never forget my senpai. His name was Philippe, and he was a black belt a year before, 2 years before I got mine in karate. And he was someone I looked to. He whooped ass. And he would like hit me, and I would like just, it was like being in the sights of a sniper. And I asked him, I said, how did you get so good? And he says, I practice every kata I've learned 3 times a day. Mm-hmm. And like, how many people are not doing that? Like we, you know, I'll tell you, I have an adverse response mentally when you say, go down to the wharf and teach a few students again. Like my ego wants to go, I ain't doing that. I did that already. No. And there it is. There it is. There's the hook. Now I jumped a little bit, but my point is this, what's stirring in my thought is the importance of introspection, and then doing something about the darn thing. Like, you know, like whatever it is you come up with in consciousness, like take a step. You know, you said something to me that I'll never forget. You said, what you're looking for is looking for you. The thing that you're searching for, the thing that you want, is looking for you. And if you take a little step, if you open that darn book, or you get up 30 minutes earlier before your kids and you do a little work, oh boy, the thing cracks. Like, just does. I don't know. Like, I love what Tom said. I don't have words for it, and some of it I'm not going to even speak, because you got to find out for yourself when you get there. That's what's, you know, stirring around.
I love it.
You know, we miss with Dr. Covey's habit number 5, seek first to understand, and to be understood, is we have to seek first to understand. Certainly we want to be understood, but we next have to apply our understanding. And if we don't make actionable our understanding, if we don't apply it, if we don't make it functional, it's knowledge, but it's not skill. It's knowledge, but it's not skill. And for someone to be the recipient of our knowledge, one thing we could do is just convey the information, but for them to really appreciate our knowledge, it's important that they experience it in the form of skill, that they can witness it. You know, it's you know, Mr. Cokinos is the kind of person who you'll watch him do what it is that he's doing, what he does, and then you want to find out what is the genesis of that behavior. You know, what is the knowledge that accompanies the skill or the practice? So I know I fall short in being very eager to share information as though it were a virtue. And it is important to share information, to convey knowledge. But I think people far more appreciate the application of our knowledge, the way we skillfully apply it in our lives, the way we demonstrate it. They want to see a demonstration. They want to experience the demonstration. And then they're compelled to find out what are the principles behind it. Then they want the information. I think that's where I fall short often.
Sir, let's wrap this up a bit. What are you thinking? What are you thinking about this?
Gene, I am so fortunate that in my inner circle of family, they could be son-in-laws, and they could be nephews, and they could be biological kids or stepkids. I think you have this really great motive to look and see where somebody is and evaluate where they are without as much judgment, and say, what could I do, as Tom used to say, to hold growth a little bit over their head? And I can't do that while I'm pointing out all their negatives and saying to myself, they should be here. And why do they make that mistake? And why are they repeating this mistake? No, I got to erase all that. And I've got to say, okay, this person has inherent great qualities, and I have to seek it out and focus in on it. And that holiday note that I'm going to write is I'm going to put so much time and feeling into it, because maybe that person doesn't get a lot of that from other people, but they're going to certainly get it from me. And so what happens is that those people that you've encouraged and seen them in a different light, down the road, they want to kind of meet with your approval over time. And there's nothing easy about having conflict with people and unseeing their behavior, but seeing the big picture. And I'm just saying that it's the same thing as being an instructor. It's the same thing as being a parent. It's the same thing as having team players. I think one of our overriding objective is to find out where somebody is, see the goodness inside of them, see where they could be, and encourage that path along. Now, how is that going to benefit us? Well, A, it's going to give us a great sense of satisfaction. B, it's going to allow them, we're going to have to set an example and take our game to the next level, because you can't behave in a way which is inconsistent with how you're talking or mentoring. And so you're going to love that person, whether you have to show up at the circuit court to bail them out. You're going to love that person and see them through. Now, how does that benefit us? It takes our game to a whole nother level. It takes our thought and our priorities to a whole nother level. It allows us to say, if I'm going to set an example, I better get my hips in gear and show them about work, about scheduling, about discipline, about organization, about priorities, about how to treat people, customers, friends, family member. I've got to really take my game to the next level and persevere and set the example of small steps of progress. And I think that's one of the greatest joys of being a martial art instructor, is seeing these students and seeing their potential and seeing where they're going to be a little bit down the road. But then having to go through the introspection, as we talked about, the reflection, the self-analysis, the ability to show up and show progress to everybody and see progress in everybody. And I just think it's why if you're out there as a martial instructor, that your mentoring is so darn powerful and so important. And you can't lose sight of that. You can't lose sight of it. You're in the last rounds and you're losing the fight. And it's blurry for you. And you got a few minutes before rounds to catch your breath. Catch your breath, because that's the one that's going to win the fight. Get back into the fight. And you will see the joy and the progress in a short amount of time. Just stick with it. You're going to be okay. And you're going to be in a whole nother place, willing and able to give away what's inside of both of you and the listening audience, which is a treasure. It's a treasure to be able to set an example and take people along with you. It's just a great joy and a pleasure.